Hello, everyone. Today, we have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Kira Leskew, who is the CEO and founder of the Eagle Institute. Kira is a meditation master for high performance individuals in business. Kira, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. How are you doing, Harris?
I'm doing very, very well. The sun is shining and, the emails are nearly cleared. So it's a good day. No complaints. How
Awesome.
about your end?
Yeah, same thing.
Absolutely.
Happy, shiny, but although I carry my own weather with me. So,
There you go. It's always sunny in that case there. No need for an umbrella.
yeah.
Amazing. So, Kira, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast episode. Really excited to have you on and dive straight in. So, I think a good place to start would probably be the very start, right? What got you onto this journey? How did you get into the position you're in today? You can take us back right to the beginning and perhaps tell us about the journey. Every journey has ups and downs, but maybe if you can give us an overview of your journey getting to the position you're in today.
Well, I've been involved at an ownership level and at the founder level in multiple businesses, and some of them were pretty hard. So I was in mostly in manufacturing back in the day, and the timelines and the demands were extremely difficult. And at that time, there were very few women as well. So there were cultural challenges that I had to deal with that were not the norm for what other people had to deal with, but also the industries were just very unhealthy. And we see that a lot today. So unfortunately, I think it's actually gotten worse, not better. Like a lot of people like stressed and sick because of that. So I went through multiple businesses and grew them substantially through some, big challenges, hard times, big market shifts. And when I was selling the last one or decided that it was no longer working with the business partner I had, a lot of my business colleagues, other business owners, entrepreneurs, founders, they saw the challenges I was going through. And you are like, I can't believe, like, first of all, you're happy. I'd be in the hospital, first of all, if I was dealing with, you're dealing with, but also you're coming up with amazing ideas and you're handling really hard situations in ways that I just wouldn't even have thought to do. And so they started asking me, what are you doing? And I said, I'm meditating. So I was actually looking at buying other businesses. And while I was doing that, I was kind of business coaching, but it was really more stopping stress and meditation practices that I was teaching to other entrepreneurs and business owners. And then that kind of really led to what I was doing today. So I was having a very hard time with buying businesses. I was getting outbid and I didn't want to overspend, just get caught up in the deal, which again, the meditation practice really helps with. Like, this is just about ego now. It's not about what actually makes sense. And one of my friends who's an entrepreneur and a CPA said to me, well, you're doing this and people seem to really want it. So why don't you make that your business? And I'm like, okay. So I just kept doing this.
Amazing, amazing. Now, what part of your journey, Kira, do you think taught you the most? What part of the journey really molded you to become the entrepreneur you are today? Is there a lesson you perhaps look back on and you're pretty grateful for because that helped you on your journey? I know normally a lot of people do go, through parts of struggle and some, personal development, but is there one moment that comes to mind that perhaps, you can
Well,
talk about?
very early on realized, like, because I'd been an elite athlete prior to doing this and I could handle a ton of pressure and I could handle a ton of workload because I'd done that from a very young age. But I saw people around me getting, like, as I said, sick mentally, physically, and emotionally, and acting in ways that just were questionable, not appropriate, not solving problems that well. And I saw myself going there. And so I knew I needed to do something about it. So once I started that and got on the journey, first of all, to learn how to stop stress, overwhelm, and burnout, which are different practices than meditation, and then learn to meditate, that gave me the skills and the foundation for all the other things I needed to learn. Because sometimes you're getting the feedback, but you don't want to hear it, or you think you're doing it, but you're really not. So it was those practices that put me in a place where I could learn the other things. So I was a pretty shy person. I was not socially skilled at a lot of things. And I was a very hard worker. And I had some abilities that were really high, and some of them that you really need to succeed, I was not good at. So the only way to do that was to be self-aware and to realize how I needed to change and grow. So all the other skills, of which I've learned of quite a few over the years, were a result of that, of being able to look at myself and to evolve myself so that I could be the leader that was going to succeed.
Absolutely. And I guess very quickly, Kira, what does a typical day look like for yourself? I know your calendar's ram-packed and, perhaps some traveling and, lots going on. But if you can maybe run us through a typical day that looks like for yourself, and what are you really focusing in on now? What point are you at now with business that this is your focal point? Is it growth at the next level? Is it fine-tuning the small little bits and getting it the sweet spot? What is a perhaps typical day?
Well, first of all, I always start with looking after myself first. So making sure that I'm mentally and emotionally in the right position. That being said, I work with clients from all different time zones all over the world at different times. So my days can change quite a bit. So sometimes, I'll get up and the first thing I'm doing is working with clients first thing in the morning. And then I do my own practice after I've done that. And then I look after business. Other times it may be the complete opposite. Like I do my own practice first, but I make sure that all the things that are really important for sustained long-term growth get looked after daily. And some of them are over a course of a week. So there's certain things, you kind of look at once on a different cadence schedule than daily. But yeah, so where we're at now in the business, I just did a major revamp last year. There are a number of challenges. What people need has changed substantially for what people needed, say, even 3 years ago. I mean, obviously, the dealing with stress, overwhelm, and burnout is still there, but people have a much higher awareness of things that are going on than they did, a few years ago. Because, going into COVID, people were, I meditate and I'm like, I knew a lot of these things were coming because they came to me in meditation. And I'm like, why are they believing this stuff? This isn't true. And then but now it's kind of, most people are on the other side of that and they're like, okay, this isn't true. Or we know that certain things aren't true, or we don't believe just because someone's saying it. So the skills and practices that people need to handle today's challenges is very different. I think one of the big skills and challenges people need to be able to handle today is the intersection of working with technology way more. We know that causes mental health problems, but also it can be limiting in your own personal command of decision making and giving your power away if you're not careful. We know that people that are highly exposed to this, and it's kind of just natural. Like we know that as people age, things you don't use regularly, you're not as good at them anymore. So I think that there's a huge importance, like kind of just starting now, where we really need to put effort into making sure that we're mentally and emotionally in charge as we continue to grow our relationship with technology. So I think that's going to be a huge mental health, but also like personal power and agency going forward, that we're not just going to let AI make all the decisions for us.
Absolutely. Coming on to now the market, right? The market, the trends, the shifts that happen within
Yeah.
the industry, perhaps some that have happened over the last few years, and maybe some that you think are going to pan out for years to come. But what is your overall take on that? What do you see the market sort of shifting towards and moving towards? And what's your overall perspective? And what are some ways business owners can navigate these changes that keep on happening? And how can they avoid getting themselves pulled out?
Yeah. Well, I think that, I think we're seeing a bigger shift to real world events again, which is nice. But I do think it's somewhat generational. So hopefully the younger generations come along with that as well and see the benefit, because there's so much to be gained from that. And I think even on our online, I mean, obviously podcasting's gotten huge. And I think certain social platforms are having a harder time, or the messages don't get out, or so I think the landscape has changed. And I think what each platform rewards in terms of content. When I say rewards, I mean that you actually can get it out to people that need it, want to hear it. That changes a lot. And I think certain, if you're a professional audience, I think that, there's certain platforms that are far more useful than others that I would have paid attention to a few years ago. So I think the landscape's changing pretty quickly, to be honest.
Absolutely. Now, more so in terms of, I guess this trend has blown up and it's so powerful, but some people are still underutilizing it. That's power of social media, right? Getting yourself seen, online presence, presenting yourself, educating, being open to, being seen. So how important has social media been to your success, the growth of the business? What are some ways that you're utilizing social media and all the different platforms that are out there? And what are some pitfalls people need to be aware of when it comes to social media to perhaps avoid getting caught out?
Yes. So, I mean, social media covers a lot of things, and there's, soundbite social media or visual bite social media, and then you've got longer form platform, which is outperforming like conventional media right now. Like you have like YouTube, there's a lot of YouTubers that and other platforms like Twitch and stuff like that, where you've got these, really long events or really long content as well as really short content. And see, even same with like LinkedIn, you've got, your soundbite, you've got longer events being run and longer video, and you've got everything in between on all of the platforms. So being aware of first of all, you need to get some of that soundbite stuff almost exclusively. You need to get
Absolutely.
some of that to get some traction and to get in front of people and just to get that kind of awareness. But that doesn't develop a relationship with people. So you need to do something like we're doing right now, where you're in a format where it's you have time to get people to get to know you. And I saw that on my YouTube channel, and it was before YouTube changed the algorithm, I had people contacting me from all over the world for like, some of the videos I did that were, 20 minutes long. I had clients from all over the world from that, because the way the content was presented and what YouTube was rewarding at the time, right? So you also
Absolutely.
have to take that into account, what the platform is rewarding in terms of how you're delivering your content. And of course, be good at it. Practice,
Absolutely.
practice, 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 practice.
Absolutely. Now, if we can hone in now more on business side of things, right? Perhaps deep dive. Now, what are some areas of the business, Kira, that are going really well and you're most proud of, and they're going strength to strength? It could be anywhere. Sales, perhaps on that front. It could be marketing, could be operations, any area you think really got a good grasp of this. And what are some areas of the business perhaps you're having some challenges with, perhaps some hurdles that you're looking to overcome? Maybe you've already overcame them, and perhaps what is, your take on getting over hurdles and when you're feeling stuck? How would you advise on those two?
Well, first of all, my personal strength is I have a professional designation in process flow logistics, and I've spoken globally on that. So that's one of my own strengths. And I have a background in in operations in a number of different industries. So for me, that's strength. And our curriculum is a strength too, because I've had so long to develop it. And we've got a curriculum that meets today's needs for business leaders. So I think that that is extremely strong as well. Although that's always evolving. As people evolve, then I mean that continues to change, but I'm also very fast at doing it. As far as, and I think we've come a long way this past year in terms of how to approach audiences, how to find audience that is going to, can convert into clients. And I think done a lot of work on that in the past year, for a variety of reasons, had to change how we were marketing, what we were marketing, sometimes for legal reasons. Country that I'm based in passed some funny laws. So we had to be very cautious about things that we're saying in certain aspects. But, again, we found ways to get around that, other markets, or change the benefits of what we were saying, how we were saying it. But again, it's evolving. And I think that side is something that any business, I don't think you ever have it totally figured out. You need to keep evolving that. and growing it. And of course, you still want to look for new ways to attract new people to your business, always.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, if we look towards the future, right? I know personally you probably have some big goals for yourself and some things you want to achieve, and maybe on the business side, definitely, it's probably the next milestone, some big goals on the vision board. But if you could summarize, what does the next 6 to 12 months look like? Obviously, you've had an amazing year just gone, but what does the next maybe year look like, and maybe even beyond that, 3 years, 5 years? What are some big goals on the vision board that you really want to achieve? And then perhaps looking back in 10, 20 years time, you want to feel really sense of accomplishment and feel proud that this is we hit and we're really proud of. So on that front, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have some pretty aggressive growth goals. So, yeah, I mean, I've had multiple. I want this business to be the biggest one that I've ever had. And I've had some pretty big ones in the past. So, yeah, growing this one beyond anything that I've done before is my number one goal. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And perhaps personal goals. Are you and business very much similar, or do you kind of look to tend to separate yourself where business has its goals and perhaps you have some personal goals? Maybe it's for some people it's more of a balance. Maybe, for example, some people it's, being able to give back and, being able to sort of have an impact. Is that something, or are you very much all in on business and that's what success looks like to you? I guess that's really the question. What does success look like to you?
Well, I kind of think I've really been living that kind of life for a very long time. I mean, I wouldn't have be a meditation master the way I am today if I wasn't putting significant time into that. I think for me, I haven't done over the past 5 years as much perhaps exercise wise as I've done previously. Again, I was at a very elite level even as an adult. Reframing that in some way so that I'm putting in more time to it than perhaps I've done over the past few years, but not necessarily like, competing and flying all over the world, going to competitions. So, although maybe, but, yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm not as like driven. I'm like, I've done that. So, it might be fun to go and do it, but I don't have to do it. So, yeah.
That's amazing. And I guess, Gary, just to wrap up on what is the biggest piece of advice you've ever received from somebody? Could be a mentor, business partner, even family, or perhaps the biggest lesson you've learned in your journey of growing businesses, scaling businesses, selling businesses. Where would you pinpoint that? Perhaps somebody listening in now could really find a lot of value and may even change the trajectory of their life. Where would you say
Yeah.
that?
So I'm trained as a Jonah, and Jonah comes from the book The Goal. So Goal is about optimizing businesses as systems, and then their curriculum goes beyond that in terms of optimizing like whole supply chains if
Yeah.
you have enough influence to be able to do that. And one of the things that I discovered when I was learning to become a Jonah was that your own mind is the biggest limiting factor that you have. How you think about things. And it's not just mindset. Like people think it's mindset, but your mind can be very convoluted. So if you don't spend time working with that and working on that, you can waste an enormous amount of time. So I remember I had one person that worked for me. They were doing something in my business. And I'm like, why are they doing this? I've explained to them, we've had team meetings, we've, done everything. Like the next step was talking to lawyers. What do we do about this? Do we have to exit this person because it's causing big problems and potentially liability for a lot of people in the business? And I meditated on it, and the answer came to me what to say and how to say it. So when you're in charge of your own mind and you can open it up and be neutral to hear the answers, what's going to work in this specific situation, it's a game changer. And it worked. So I solved, like with a short meditation and a 30-second conversation, what we couldn't solve in years of having conversations and team meetings and process and warning and all this stuff. So yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Kira, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. We had an amazing conversation. I'm sure everyone listening in has found a lot of value. And can't thank you enough for your contribution. So thank you so much. Is there any final comments, closing comments, perhaps you may have for clients, people you work with, or perhaps even somebody interested in reaching out? Any final comments or closing thoughts you may have?
Yeah, I think, no matter what you're doing in business, if you own or run your own business, or even if you work for somebody else, like, you need to look after yourself, because if you don't do that, then you don't have the resources you need in any regard, mental, physical, emotional. So I think that that's the most important thing. Yeah. And if people, have further questions, LinkedIn is the best way they can connect with me. So I'd love to hear your questions if you have them.
Amazing. Well, Kira, again, massive thank you, and thank you to everyone who's tuned in. We'll catch you all next time. Bye bye.